Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Declan's Autism Journey podcast. I have two amazing special guests with me today, Dr. Liv and Dr. Devin, who are Dec's chiropractors, as well as my oldest son. We cannot forget my friend Brendan. And so I invited you guys here today to talk about just Declan, of course, right? Like I've given you both permission to fully share what you saw on Declan's scans. I think it's so important that you're as honest and transparent as possible. And that's what I said. It's like, I want to talk about how this has impacted Declan and the effect and, all the wonderful things that you guys have had on our family. So that's really important to share. But I also really want to talk about his scans, which I know we're going to screen share and we're going to dive into those a little bit more. But again, I really want you to don't sugarcoat it, right? Like, let's talk about, as I call it, the wreck of a nervous system that poor little thing was living with. Because I think that's important for other moms out there to hear is, we want the truth, even sometimes, and it's really hard to hear, but it doesn't change it. And so anyhow, let's just talk about that. But I thought we would start with just some introduction. So Dr. Liv, if you just want to start and tell us about yourself. And as I was just saying to you before we started, it's I love hearing why you were called to this path for yourself. I mean, it's just something I didn't even know was out there. And so I think I just want to hear why and how you found this, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi guys, I'm Dr. Liv. I am co-owner of Lighthouse Family Chiropractic with Dr. Devin there. And I actually found chiropractic kind of on a whim. My dad worked for UPS and he had a really bad back. And so he was going to see a chiropractor and I would see him walk in all hunched over and then walk out standing up straight. And I was just a high schooler at the time and I just thought it looked cool. So I was like, let's just try this. And at the same time, so I was probably 16, 17-ish age. I was struggling really bad with insomnia. I was sleeping probably on average 3 to 4 hours a night throughout high school. At this point, I didn't really think there was anything wrong. When you're in high school, my mom wasn't necessarily aware of how much I was sleeping. She just knew that I was tough to wake up in the morning. But I got adjusted and it was the first time I ever slept through the night. I fell asleep. Yeah, I fell asleep immediately that night, I remember, and I woke up and I was like, oh, that was weird. And I didn't necessarily put all the pieces together, but also at the same time, I was struggling with some ADHD. It was very high functioning. So I never went down the medication route or anything like that. It was always, oh, she can't sit still, but she does well in school. So it's okay. And then also, as most teenage girls start to experience some social anxiety, especially with friends and in school, and not sleeping at night doesn't help the social anxiety because you have a whole lot of time to overthink every little thing you did that day.
Right.
And as I started to get adjusted consistently, I noticed huge improvements in all of those things. And honestly, I didn't put it together that it was the chiropractic until I went to my undergraduate school and I wasn't getting adjusted. And all those things slowly but surely started to creep back into my life with the stressors of moving to a new state, living in a dorm, all of that. And I had to really sit down with myself and be like, okay, what changed? Realized it was the chiropractic piece, started getting adjusted again, and knew instantly that this was the career path for me.
Oh, I love that. And I love that your dad was seeing a chiropractor, which I think is amazing. And I love that they were open to bringing you as even a teen, right? Like a young adult. I think that's awesome.
Yes. And what's funny is my dad was, when I asked him, he was like, I mean, I'll ask her. I don't know why, I don't know if kids can get adjusted. And now I'm a pediatric specialist.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. Hi, Dr. Devin.
Hey, Diane. How are you?
Great. It's so good to see you. I love that you're both here with me. So fun.
Us too.
But yeah. So, like I said, my name's Dr. Devin Vincenzo. I'm the other co-owner of Lighthouse Family Chiropractic. The way I got into pediatric and family wellness, especially with the neurologically focused approach to chiropractic, my impact through chiropractic started as I got further through my chiropractic journey. I originally started off going and getting adjusted because I was your typical teenager playing lots of sports, had neck, back pain issues. So of course, then my parents thought to bring me to a chiropractor. The way my mom actually convinced me is she said it would make me taller. So that was a big selling point. Sadly, here I say that I got just a little bit taller, not too much, but later on, though, where I really found chiropractic to be super impactful, later on decided I wanted to go to chiropractic school. I started interning with the chiropractor when I was an undergrad. Around my senior year, I started developing pretty severe social anxiety, depression, and also extreme digestive issues. I was going to a number of different digestive specialists, trying out different other things, and nothing was working. And then at the same time, when I was interning, I started getting regularly adjusted. And it was at that time I noticed the adjustments were actually what went by and cleared up my digestion completely. And like I said, I went to every digestive specialist in the area. They had no answers for me, no probable cause of what was going on, but I knew that chiropractic had some sort of special sauce to it. So then when I got into school, I knew that the body was all interconnected in that way. It wasn't until then I met Dr. Liv at school. She was able to help to expose me to this field of pediatric experience. And what Dr. Tony helps to experience us and tell us about is this perfect storm of events that goes on. And we'll cover that more later, but I started connecting it back to what my mom's stress was like during her pregnancy, what my birth was like, my upbringing, the struggles I had at an early age that were thought of as common but not normal, of colic turning into ear infections, becoming one of those kids that was put under the radar with social anxiety, ADHD that was undiagnosed, still had digestive issues, and just kind of always wondering why I felt just always off with it. And it was really when I started training with pediatric experience, I really noticed how all the pieces were all put together. So I always like to tell parents whenever I sit in front of them with the day one, day two, is I say, I understand I'm not a parent. I don't understand what it's like to be in the storm, to go through what you're experiencing as the parent, but I know exactly what it's like to be that child in that seat as well, being confused, not understanding what's going on. And that's why I love, and I'm so passionate about what we do, is the fact that I can help to get those children out of the storm so that way they can live a fruitful, bountiful life without needing to go by and have to look through these other alternatives and feel like they always have to struggle, and really seeing their full potential and impact that they can make in the world.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, I feel both of your passion, right? Like, you guys are amazing. And I love, Dr. Devin, too, that your parents brought you there. Like, I can't say, I mean, I'm much older than you guys, but I mean, I think if I, first of all, back in my generation, like, you didn't really, ADHD was like a thing, but it was just medication, which is maybe still kind of the way it is today, right? But like, chiropractic would have never crossed my parents' mind, and not, just for whatever reason, like, it just wasn't a thing. And I think it was, even when it came across my plate, Tim, my husband, does treat with a chiropractor for his back, and I know that he has seen benefits from it. I never have personally been, other than my experience with Declan prior to you guys a couple years ago. But yeah, so I mean, I think it's fascinating. So why don't we talk a little bit about how you met, which I know is at chiropractic school, but then Dr. Liv, if you want to jump into Dr. Tony Ebel and like how you then honed in on kind of this pediatrics, neurologically focused chiropractic care, because that's what connects us here, of course, but I think that's really important. And I just want to say before we do that, Dr. Tony Ebel, and you will share more, Dr. Liv, but is the chiropractor that hosts this Experience Miracles podcast, which is how I found neurologically focused chiropractic care. Another autism mom sent it to me, because that's what we do in the autism community. We all support each other and share our findings. And she was seeing some real benefits with her son, who is older than Declan, but nonverbal, non-speaking, similar mannerisms, dysregulation. And we actually met through the Malillo method, like at the Malillo clinic in New York. Anyhow, so that's kind of how it crossed my mind. But, I hadn't had the best prior experience with a chiropractor related to Declan. So I was very gun shy, but from the minute I walked into your clinic and we had connected before that, I was like, oh, this is where Declan is meant to be. So with that, why don't you, Dr. Liv, just talk a little bit about that and like that phase of your evolution?
For sure. So me and Devin met in chiropractic school. We were both part of an organization called Student Life Force, to relate it to like other campuses, kind of like a student ambassador kind of like we help communicate with prospective students kind of thing. And both myself and Devin had leadership roles in that. He was president, I was vice president. So that was really when we started to connect more, became friends, and started to talk more about my experience with the pediatric experience. So I found Dr. Tony my first quarter in school. So technically I was a quarter 2 student, but I did my first quarter online. So I heard that there was someone coming to talk. I had no idea who he was, but he was actually coming to talk about pediatric chiropractic. And I've always known I wanted to work with kids, right? I just didn't necessarily know to which level or which route I was going to go. So me and my friends were like, oh, let's just go check this out. It's a free talk. At this talk, and it was roughly when PX or pediatric experience had first started. Dr. Tony was there and he gave his perfect storm workshop. And kind of like what Devin said previously about how when he first heard it, he was able to connect the pieces of his own health. The same thing happened to me. I was able to really put everything together. Like, oh yeah, I did have to be induced, and my mom had a tough labor, and I had all those ear infections. So wheels were turning in my mind, basically, like, this is me. And also he was the first one I ever interacted with who like was able to describe how chiropractic can help all these different things with science behind it. Right. He went through, the posters we have in our office, the neurological fuse chart, the gas versus brake. We'll talk about those a little bit more later. But when he was explaining all of this stuff, I was hooked immediately. So around this time, Club PX was starting at Life University, which is where me and Devin went to school. And I started going every week. Me and my friends, we did not miss a single week of this club. Eventually, I was fortunate to become club president, so able to help with that. And I actually did go on and work for PX for a little bit, helping with all the clubs around the country. Now they have a rock star team that's doing it. And I was fortunate enough to do my internship with Dr. Tony. So at the end of chiropractic school, you get 6 months for your internship as a graduation requirement. And I packed my bags and my heavy winter coat and I went up to Illinois from October to March, which was the coldest months, but it was worth it.
The coldest.
And I thought that leading into my internship, I already had a pretty good knowledge of the PX world, right? And how they practice. I mean, I trained thousands of hours. I was able to sit through, they do a big certification class for doctors. And because I was a club leader, I was able to sit in on those and help and also learn. So I was going into my internship and I was excited. I was like, okay, like I'm going to see everything I've learned put into action. But it was even crazy how much more I learned during that experience, like getting to witness it firsthand. Not only just Dr. Tony, but his whole incredible rockstar team of doctors. There's 8 of them now. And getting to see everything that they speak about, but in person, was awesome. Because at this point, I had not really, I worked at a PX office in chiropractic school for a little bit of time as well, but just as like a scan tech and a CA. So I had never had the opportunity to adjust a child with autism. To witness like full adjustments of these kids. Dr. Tony also has an intensive program where people travel from all over the world, not just the country, the world. It's the coolest thing. And they stay in Crystal Lake, Illinois, from anywhere from 2 weeks to a month. And the kids get adjusted twice a day. And Dr. Tony is heavily involved with those cases. So I was able to sit in on them. It was actually my job to record the adjustments. And that was probably the best learning experience for me because I got to see Dr. Tony in his element. And also got to see firsthand that like the adjustments, it's not always going to go really smooth. Every kid's not going to lay down on the table and let you do all your checks and all of that stuff. So being able to see how Dr. Tony uses his eyes and he's the best mentor in the sense that he would always make sure I saw what was going on. And it was the absolute coolest experience. There is nothing like PWC Chiropractic is what his office is called. And they truly experience miracles there every day. And the work that Dr. Tony is doing through the podcast
Yeah.
And the PX Docs Instagram, just to spread awareness, is, I think, single-handedly changing the trajectory of health for kids everywhere.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think first, I think it's amazing that you were able to be there in person with him, because as I've said before, and I've said on this podcast too, when I first heard him, I was unsure of his energy, because I think when you've been on this journey as a parent for a while, you realize not everyone is actually selling what they're telling you they're selling or providing.
Yep.
And, so I think there's a lot of hesitancy going in. And, one of the best pieces of advice from my girlfriend was like, just trust your gut. If he's not for you, he's not for you. Don't just keep moving then. And I was like, well, I love that. But yet something was like, just keep listening. And I mean, now I'm like so hooked. Like, I love his energy. I just think, to your point, I think that his message makes sense. It's truly coming from a place of he really cares. Like, he has so much passion behind what he's doing and the believing in what he's doing. And those are the people that I only allow onto Declan's bus, as you guys know, right? Like, it's, even if you're not going to change Declan dramatically, if you're open and you're kind and you're genuine, you're always welcome on his bus. But you guys are really changing it. But so that's how you guys came across my plate, is my girlfriend sent me your info, Dr. Liv, and was like, she trained under Dr. Tony. You don't even have to go to Illinois. Like, she's literally in your city. You need to go see her. And I was like, okay, you're right. I have no reason not to.
Well, I'm grateful for your friend for bringing you and your family into our lives.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
But that's like autism parents. Like, there was one quote in the Spellers movie, and it's J.B. Hanley says, autism parents trust other autism parents. And that is like totally one of my many mantras, but that is one of the most important ones. Like, it's so true. Like, and there's also this sentiment of like, I don't need the data. If another autism parent tells me it's working for their kiddo, then we're doing it,
Yes.
All right. That's amazing. I love that you trained under him. I mean, what a gift to be present and to learn. And like you said, these kiddos using just Declan. I mean, Dr. Devin, how many adjustments for him have you done on the floor? Like, I feel like Dr. Liv, he's more accommodating to you. He goes on the table.
That is true.
He makes Dr. Devin work doubly hard to get those adjustments some days.
Yeah, we're always happy to do it. Any way that makes them the most comfortable, like we talk about, trying to get them as much regulated and open, we're always willing to do those adjustments. That's what I always like to say. For a lot of times, parents, I watch them try to almost force their kids on the table. I'm like, no. Like, I'm happy to chase them around. That's what I train for.
Yes, I know. And I think that is so different. And that's why, like, the partnership is so important, because I think, just me, but I think I'm representative of a lot of autism parents, is that, going into even a medical office is like not only anxiety inducing for the child, like really anxiety inducing, but I mean, also for the parent, because it's not always the warm welcome and the acceptance and the openness that is at your clinic, which is so important. But I want to go back to, so how, I know you both met in chiropractic school. How did you decide to open your own clinic? I mean, that's a huge venture, which I love. I mean, I think it's amazing. But why don't you talk about how you decided to take that next step?
Yeah, so my family, they moved down here from Northern Virginia right when I started up at my undergrad, USC. And so I knew they were going to be living in Charleston, and my family is very close to me. So I knew I wanted to be close by to them. So I always knew I was going to open up here in Charleston. And as I started going through PX in school, I was like, all right, like without a doubt, I'm opening a PX office with no doubt in my mind. And Dr. Liv and I happened to be in an online class together, both doing our internships. And I saw her mention on there that she wanted to open up in Charleston. And I was like, well, how have we not had this conversation beforehand? And throughout our time, we're like, we have to open up together. We have to do this together. There wasn't any office in the area that does even close to what we do. So we wanted to go by and be able to bring this pediatric experience approach to the Charleston community. And it's really just been the most rewarding experience getting to sit there. Like Dr. Liv talked about, getting to experience miracles at PWC. We love seeing the amazing miracles that we see time and time again every single day in our office with kids ranging from so many different struggles, and it just fills up our cup so much. And being able to show them the fact that this neurologically focused approach really can help out with so many different ranges of things. Well, we talk about even especially as well, it's great, especially to get kids adjusted early on to make sure that they avoid the storm potentially and don't have as many of these struggles, or at least whenever they do have these struggles come up, we can help their body be neurologically focused enough to be able to help to get them through that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So why don't we talk a little bit about then what is like the PX, like what differentiates that from someone who doesn't have that certification?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. So PX it started as, so before all this more parent facing stuff has started to arise in the past like year or two, which is awesome. But PX really started as a chiropractic training, basically like a training group. And they have a whole membership where, I mean, there's hundreds of hours of content, a lot of Dr. Tony and his energy. And then eventually they started a certification program. So it is the only pediatric certification or adjusting certification course that is backed by a university. So it's backed by Life University. And so in that training course, you have to do 60 hours of pre-work, which is, a lot of modules, videos, and also some like quizzes and answers and stuff. And then you do 20 hours in person. During this in-person training, they cover everything from the scans. There's live adjustments performed that you get to watch, and communication work, but also really the science behind all of this. And I think that if it wasn't for Dr. Tony, really, I think is the first, at least that I'm aware of, chiropractor who is able to figure out a way to communicate all of this to parents that makes sense, and isn't too woo-woo, or, like there's actually science behind it. Like I can explain to you why a C1 subluxation or stress can cause emotional distress, right? And so that course, and then after doctors graduate from that, they get that PX Pro listing on the PX Docs website. But really, and there's weekly training courses. We're constantly training. They do two live classes a week that me and Devin always hop on. And they just really make sure. And the thing I love about PX is they're not afraid to go back and be like, this is better than it was before.
Yeah.
Which I love. Like they're always building on it, or they're always expanding things. So even like they're actually going through right now, I think, and like changing a bunch of the videos to update them to get more fresh information, like everything, like, and I got to see it in the doc room when I was at PWC. Their minds are always going. They're always trying to figure out a way to make this better or change this, or how can we communicate this so all parents understand. And the coolest thing for me with the PX Docs is that we're just a bunch of really passionate people who want to help kids and families and who love the nervous system and have taken the extra time and energy to learn all of this, because this is not taught to us in schools. And this is why we always talk about how it's so important that, like, if you're looking for a pediatric chiropractor for your child, go on pxdocs.com. Find your chiropractor that way, because you want to find a chiropractor, especially for my kiddos that are, struggling with autism, those higher neurological challenges, ADHD, epilepsy, all of that. You don't want to just go to a chiropractor who, oh yeah, I see kids too. You want to go to a chiropractor who it's like, I have trained and I am prepared to help your child. Mm-hmm. And that's why we always recommend that if you're looking for a chiropractor, even for yourself, even if you're not a kid, if you want a nervous system focused chiropractor and you want to feel these benefits, you got to go to pxdocs.com.
Yeah. And I think, like, for people that don't live in the chiropractic world, I just think that's also really interesting. What you're saying is that even in chiropractic school, like, so you don't work on kids in chiropractic school, or you do, but it's not nervous system focused.
Yeah. It's really kind of just scratching the surface a little bit. And like they always say, the whole goal of chiropractic school is just to learn just how to just treat the average person. What we do, especially outside the classroom, is attain a lot more of that special certifications, especially through that neurotonal focus with PX, that really helped us to be prepared to see kids that are neurodivergent, that have these extra struggles. Because the thing is, like Dr. Liv said, you can't just go to your average chiropractor and have them be prepared to be able to see that with you.
Right. Right. You're not going to get the most out of those adjustments for your kiddo. To your point, I think for me, like I've always said, Dex challenges are deep rooted. Like he's 6, even though that's still little. He's probably lived this way with this nervous system for his entire life. And so 6 years in, like that, those have some pretty strong roots. And so it's not a quick fix. And but I love that. I think what we feel too, I feel too with other docs is like, that's the frustrating piece is like, even autism, right? Like it's the most prevalent diagnosis for kids. And yet there's like, they glance over it in medical school, or like it's a chapter or it's a piece of a chapter, within a chapter related to neurodivergent challenges or issues. And that's just the frustrating piece. So I love the fact that you guys are digging in on your own. You knew there was more and you're digging in to find out what that is and really make a difference. So when we talk about neurologically focused chiropractic, like what in the adjustments, like talk me through, and I know, but like, so talk everyone through, like, what does that look like? What are you looking at differently than a typical chiropractor? And not to say one's not right, one's right, one's wrong. This is just what your focus is. So like, what's the difference of like taking Declan to you guys versus taking Declan to someone who doesn't have, who is just a chiropractor? I don't mean that in a rude way, but does not have the additional certification.
And I'm going to let Devin take this one, but first I'm just going to jump in and say there's nothing wrong with, like, all chiropractic to me is better than no chiropractic care, right?
Yeah. Okay.
In no way is that slandering other chiropractors. It's just, it's kind of like medical doctors. Everybody has their own specialty, right? Like you're not going to go to a GI doctor to talk about ear infections. Kind of thing. We all have our own specialty within it. And that's just why with kids, you definitely want to bring a kid to somebody who is more trained in this way. Or if you're looking for more of a nervous system based approach, you want to find a chiropractor who is trained in that. But I'm going to let Devin take that away with that one.
No, and absolutely that what Dr. Liv says is absolutely true, but especially with our neurologically focused approach, especially helping out kids with other struggles like autism, ADHD, and other neurological disorders, we're going to first obviously listen to the parent first and foremost, that we always make sure during the day one that we have parents have plenty of time to speak, because at the end of the day, you're the one that's living in the storm. You're the one that can tell us the most about your child as well. If the child's able to say anything else about it, we always want to sit there and listen and give them an opportunity to be able to speak to us. I feel like that's not done enough in any practitioner's doctor's office. We want to make sure we always give parents the freedom to be able to do that. But then we go by and pair it with our insight scans. The insight scans are a new approach, especially to chiropractic in general, but it helps us to see overall, where is that root cause? Where is that primary point of interference? And especially, what is the overall health of the nervous system looking like? And we'll look at that, especially through the thermal, surface EMG, and heart rate variability scans later on. But especially then from there, it helps us to see how is the whole body being affected. Obviously, with something like autism, it's not just simply just a brain disorder that's only affecting those higher functions of learning. We always talk about how it's affecting digestion, immune system, sleep, and so many other systems that go along with it. We always have to say the core fundamentals are eat, sleep, and poop. But especially we want to see how that's all being affected with it, and then go by and basically look at it from that perspective of, how are we creating neurological change? How are we getting the body out of this fight or flight state or this neuroexhaustive stage, and help them to be best adaptable and resilient to handle stressors of life? And exactly how are these stressors affecting them? That's why we always go back and look at, especially all the way back to pregnancy for their mom, and especially what their birth was like, what their life has been like up until they've come to us, and especially what are their stressors going to be like going forward as well, because we need to understand the effect that their nervous system is going to have on the stressors that go with them, and basically look at the neurological bandwidth that's going to be available to them. Our goal through our nervous system approach is to increase that neurological bandwidth, but help to unwind the stress that's being placed on that nervous system, so that way their body can be in a better balanced state to best heal from within and really get to the root cause of what's going on. If, like, for instance, if we're looking at just a digestive issue as just a digestive problem, we're not looking at especially how those digestive struggles can be affecting then their immune system, how that build up, especially in their gut, and everything else is affecting higher brain function. But the thing is then, like we said, if you're only looking at just the gut, you're missing the whole picture with it. So from there, whenever we're able to pair that all together and go by and continue to scan kids throughout their care plan, because we scan every 12 visits to see that neurological change of what's going on in their child or even in themselves, that's what helps us to really understand what changes are we making, what exactly is going on that's affecting their nervous system, but especially how is their body changing and ever evolving with it. Like, I know we've talked with you, Diane, about especially how Declan's able to get out of fight or flight and how he's better adaptable to handle what's going on in his daily life. And as we talk about, especially at first, we understand that the end goal is to be able to help out with his higher brain functions that are relating to autism. But obviously then we also then always celebrate whenever we have changes in poop, changes in sleep, overall changes in ear infections. It's all coming back to especially that root cause of what's going on with the nervous system. And that's especially what I feel like makes our approach so much different, is the fact that we're really looking deep into what's being caused in there and not looking at it from different systems. And especially, like we said, from our training of what we did through PX, that's what allows us to really see that change with it. And maybe why some chiropractors, they're like just on the edge of what their potential is capable of. And they don't really understand the overall effect that can become when they actually look at the body from this full neurologically focused approach.
Yeah, I think that's also important. And I will say, just from the parent perspective, I mean, I have tried so many different things with Declan and so many different modalities. And this was totally different, than anything we've ever tried. But number one, we walked in there and you guys presumed competence in Declan right off the bat. You spoke to Declan, which those are like my top two things right now, is like just speaking to Declan directly and presuming that he's in there, even if his body is showing otherwise. And you guys did that, which was amazing. But then I love talking about like the scans. And, while like I go back, data is important, but like I look at Declan like he is my data, right? Like I just look at him like he's the data. But you guys actually do run scans, which we'll show in a minute if we're ready to go there. But I think what I would just say to other parents is like, this was a totally different experience than any other provider that we have seen. And in such a positive way. I mean, we have great partners and other providers like Dr. Malillo and our Spellers team. And we now just went to a developmental ophthalmologist who, again, her entire team presumed competence. They just couldn't have been kinder to Declan or I. I mean, it was actually really like a great experience. And that's also important, but I still think and maybe because I'm seeing you guys like in the beginning every day, 5 times a week, and then we brought it down to 4 based on his scans. So you're making decisions based on Declan's scans. But what I also love is like, you're like, Mom, just trust your gut. And we have a very open dialogue to say, I can say like, this is how I'm feeling. What do you think? Or you can say, this is what we're recommending. What do you think, Mom? And it just really feels collaborative. I also know enough to like say what I'm feeling, but also trust you both that you're the experts in this area. And so you drive this piece of his bus, right? Like we work together, but I really do respect and value your opinion. And I always want your honest opinion when it comes to like where he's at. And I might, like, I know with his 5 days, I was like, can we do one more week? Like, I'm feeling it. And you guys were like, yeah, that's reasonable. And then, but then we talked about why we don't continue 5 sessions a week. And that made perfect sense. So we brought it down to 4 and then we brought it to 3. And every time he's scanned, you guys send me a detailed report that you narrate, which is so helpful. So that I then save it and can go back and look at it like 10 different more times. And, but I think it's really feeling like it's a partnership, but there's open communication I think too, sometimes I am seeing changes in Declan. I just want to be clear. I am visually seeing changes in Declan, and I'll talk a little bit about them. But I think more than anything, I think the body's healing from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes as a parent, that's also hard because you just want, the challenges to go away yesterday. And that's just not realistic. And so talk a little bit about that, if you would, like healing from the inside out and what you hear from other parents too. You guys have been doing this a while now, and you see so many families that come into your office, and what are you hearing from other parents as well related to like seeing changes, or maybe not seeing changes, but seeing changes on the scans?
Yeah. So first, I'll let Dr. Liv take that over, but I just want to go back to especially what you said about how you've tried out these other modalities, tried out all these other things with it. We always like to say that the nervous system is the engine of the body. Those other modalities, other things you're doing are absolutely down the right path. It's the fuel though that you're putting into your body instead with it. If you're not going by and fixing the engine first and foremost, it's not going to allow for those other things like the spellers, the Lillo method, other things, nutrition, things like that, to be able to have its highest, fullest potential. That's why, especially to start off, a lot of things that we hear from parents is saying that we saw changes initially when we did this certain thing, but we felt like it kind of plateaued, or we are not getting the full benefit out of it. That's why we work with so many other PTs, OTs, speech therapists, other modalities, and other therapies, other therapy specialists, because of the fact they're doing a great job at what they do, helping to allow the body to continue to reach their full potential, what they can. But if we don't create that good foundation, the nervous system behind it all, it's not going to allow the whole body to get the whole effect of what it needs to it and really get to the root source of it.
Yeah. And I think that's key. I think that is key, just as a parent, a key takeaway is building that strong foundation first, and then everything else kind of falls in line after, or you get more for your time and your energy and your money if you have that really strong foundation.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of to even piggyback off of what, Dr. Devin was saying, like my favorite feedback to hear, of course, I love hearing parents' feedback. That is right up there. But like my favorite feedback to get is from those providers and from teachers and from the people that are also spending a lot of time with the kids that isn't necessarily the parent, right? Because the parent is spending the most time with that child. Nobody knows your child quite like you, but you're seeing them all like for most of the day, right? My favorite is when the teachers, or like we had one little boy who his speech therapist was like, what did you change recently? Because like this past week, his speech has exploded, sort of thing. Physical therapists saying they have more stamina in sessions, teachers saying they're focusing better in class. Those are some of my favorite little gems, because one, I think it's really validating for the parent to know that someone else is seeing this, especially when they didn't. I mean, even if they did know that they added this in, but even if they didn't know, that's kind of being like, what changed? And I've been very fortunate to have had numerous conversations with therapists after they've noticed changes in the kids they've been working with, and getting to have conversations about why that happens, and also getting to get a little peek into how they view things, because we love other therapies. We love PTs, OTs, speech therapists, everybody. But sometimes when the nervous system is really stressed, those therapies, like Devin said, just don't get to work as well. Or you'll see big change initially and then it kind of plateaus. So we often see when adjustments start, they get to thrive in their other therapies as well.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I think you had another question kind of in there.
Just what we hear during the day one.
Oh, during the day one.
Yeah, or just throughout, like what parents experience, tell us.
Yeah, like what are you hearing from other parents too? Because I know, like I'm vocal, and so like what do you hear from other parents? Like, because I think sometimes, like I said, the journey can be longer than anticipated or than you want. But like, so how do other parents feel that way? Like, I think sometimes it's defeating sometimes when when the body's healing from the inside out, because you can't see those things right away. And again, because like using Declan, like his because his challenges are pretty cavernous and he's climbing his way out, it's not something, I know we have to stick with it. So we're going to stick with it. There's no doubt about that. But, for others that maybe were on the fence to begin with, like, do you feel like that? Do you hear that from other parents?
Absolutely. I think when we talk care plan a lot, I think a lot of people don't expect, because some of our care plans can go upwards of, like for Declan, 60 visits. It is a lot. And we know that. We know it's a big commitment, both financially, but with time management as well. Like, especially with a lot of these kids are doing all the other things, right? They have a chock full schedule. So, we definitely, when we get to the care plan, sometimes some parents are like, oh, that's more than I thought it would be, or wow, like that's a lot of visits. And and I think why like our training is so important is because we're able to communicate why it has to be that way, and I wish if I could have given Declan a 24 visit care plan, he could have come in, twice a week for a couple weeks and called it a day. Like that would have been nice, right? Like I would love that. But unfortunately, it's just not the way the nervous system and the neurology works. But I will say 99% of parents that come into our office are just as in love with the scans as you are, Diane, and like getting to see the changes. And what I love about our scans so much is they are very validating in what you are experiencing at home, either with, as an adult yourself, but also your child. Because for a lot of these diagnoses or a lot of these challenges, there is no physiological test for them, right? When you think about like an ADHD diagnosis, they don't, there's no blood work or no panel they can run. And it's really cool for us to watch parents kind of put the puzzle pieces together when we show them the scans and be like, oh, that's why, they get overstimulated in loud places. This is why, they struggle with constipation. Neurology doesn't lie. So it's all in our scans. And it usually paints the story beautifully. Like it paints it like it tells the exact story of what your child is experiencing because that neurology doesn't lie. But then as far as feedback that we get from parents, we celebrate even the smallest of wins at our office because small wins make for big wins later on.
Yeah.
A big thing, I know we've already kind of touched on the whole eat, sleep, and poop thing. Those are what we call our neurological soft signs. And to put that in perspective, think about a baby. What is a baby's 3 main jobs? It's to eat, sleep, and poop. As silly as it sounds, it really is the foundation of our nervous system. So that's why we usually see those changes first. That being said, that is not always the case. For example, with Declan, we wanted to get to the bottom of his constipation. That's what I believed I truly thought, I was like, constipation is going to be quick because his body's going to want to heal that. But the nervous system always heals what it deems to be the most important first. And within that first week of daily visits, you had already gotten a notice home from a teacher that he was focusing better.
Yeah.
But we weren't seeing the poop changes.
Right.
So sometimes like that's a conversation we have relatively frequently because most of the time doesn't mean all of the time as far as the order in which we see progress. And now we've got Dec pooping pretty frequently. He's on a much more consistent basis, and we are so excited for that win as well. But sometimes parents do get discouraged in the journey because as most things with healing, sometimes things look a little worse before they look better, or sometimes you'll have a really, really good day and then a not so good day the next day. Which this is a big conversation that we have is, when we have really high highs, but really low lows, we're trying to bridge the gap, right? We want to have more consistency, but in the middle of care, that's just not necessarily how it always looks. So we do hear from parents sometimes like, oh, they're a little bit more emotional right now, or little things like that. But it's always reminding those parents that means we are on the way to big change.
Right.
And the reason why we sometimes see things get a little bit worse, we call it a neurological detox. Think of it this way. Your child has been seeing things through one lens their whole life, right? And even if there's things we want to help them with, when you make change in the nervous system, change is uncomfortable in all forms of life.
Yeah.
So sometimes the kids get like their nervous system gets uncomfortable with the changes because we're going in there and we're like, no, you're going to see things, differently now, like kind of through a different lens, the nervous system. We're trying to calm things down. It's kind of like starting a new like workout program. I like to relate it to parents. I think it's easy to understand. Like if I were to go and just start CrossFit right now, the first 2 weeks would be the hardest, first month even, right? You're extra sore. It's uncomfortable doing the new movements, all of that. It's very much kind of how the nervous system works. And same thing for why we do larger care plans. It's like exercise in that way too, because it takes consistency and momentum.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if you will touch on like why you don't want to do daily adjustments for too long of a period, because I think that was the thing that I needed your guidance on, was because I was like, well, I'm local. I can just do this every day, all day. Let's do it. Like, because I just was such a believer in it. It all made sense that this is where we should start. But the reasoning makes sense as well as to why you don't want to do that.
Yeah, of course. So the scans always dictate great plans, and Declan's scans at first did dictate that daily adjustments to get his nervous system in a more balanced state was absolutely what needed to start off to create that neurological momentum moving forward. But at the end of the day as well, we want the nervous system to be adaptable and resilient on its own as well. The way that happens with it is being able to space out the adjustments in between when timing is right with it. So then from there, it allows for his nervous system to best learn how to handle through the stressors that come with his life. Because truthfully, of where, like you said, if you have to come in and get adjusted every single day, his body then becomes reliant on the care instead. Yes. And like we talked about, then the whole goal of it is the fact that then when he's able to have that space in between, that's what allows his nervous system to really grow in between with it, to be able to see those changes with it. So then from there, as we go, like Diane talked about, going from that 5 times a week down into 4, down to 3, it's obviously dictated, especially on the scans and what you're telling us as well. But with it, that's when we really start seeing these great changes with these kids, is as their nervous system gets a chance to say like, oh, like I can learn how to handle this on my own. It's like the same idea with your kids at first. You need to go by and kind of teach them and hold their hand through the process. And then it's kind of scary at first when you kind of then let them do their own thing and be able to make those mistakes and go through it. But that's the way their body just learns as well. It's the same thing, especially obviously from a parent developmental standpoint. It's the same thing with your body as well. And then from there, they become more self-autonomous with their body and be able to allow their nervous system to best learn how to handle it, take those stressors in. And what we always say is, especially even after we do finish up that initial care plan, we always recommend wellness care plan after, because life still has a lot of stressors that go on with it. And we want to be able to go by and offer that support through it. But typically that looks like what could be supportive wellness of sticking with 2 times a week at first for a little bit, especially whenever they're going through a tougher time, whether that is growth spurts, a sickness, new digestive struggles, more anxiety, other things like that. But especially then it goes down into typically wellness 1 time a week, because like we said, life is stressful. There's a lot of things happening, and we just help to almost give that small nudge to say, just keep moving forward. You got it, nervous system. You can do it. As opposed to at the beginning, we're kind of really pushing the boulder up the hill with it at times.
Right. That's a good analogy for deck in the beginning, I feel like is, but is like pushing something very heavy, a boulder up a mountain, like, right. But now we're in like that sweet spot for him. And I feel like first of all, he runs in there. He's so happy. He runs in your clinic. It's like his second home. And I think that just speaks volumes though too, because I think autism parents can probably relate to this, but that fight or flight, like when I brought him to you guys, I don't think I even realized like how bad his fight or flight was and how consistent he was living in it. Like there wasn't much, even when we would be in our home, which is a very safe space for him. His body was hot to the touch. Like he's 6 and I could smell body odor. Like I was like, what is going on? Like that is so, what's happening? That's not typical. Why is he reacting this way? And that just was getting worse. And so when I brought him to you guys, like it made sense. Like it was truly, he's living in fight or flight and his nervous system is so wonky and like out of touch and needed to be reined in. And I will say for me, yes, for sure, we've gotten feedback from the teacher that he is more focused. And that was within the first week, right? First or second week. It was very soon after. Yeah, super soon after we started care. Yes, his poops have gotten better. I think what I would say to parents is like, this is not a magic fix, right? Like it's not a magic fix. And so, yes, like Declan at one point, just like his fight or flight had gotten so much worse, so had his constipation. A year ago, I would never have described Declan as a kid who deals with constipation, even though that was very prevalent in the autistic community. I knew that was one of the markers, but I was like, well, Declan doesn't have that. And he didn't. He pooped every day. He was pretty regular. And then that just got worse and worse and worse. And so there were times where he would go 4 or 5 days without pooping. And then, you can imagine by the time it comes out, it's pretty awful for him. But, and that has gotten tremendously better. We're still not daily, but that's okay. We've had bouts of daily. We've had bouts of every other day, even 3 days. Okay. It's kind of just like this. You've just got to stay the course. And I tell you guys every day, he pooped 2 days ago, or he pooped yesterday, or we're down to daily. Like, we celebrate it. And you take that information and you build that into your adjustment or your evaluation of him. And I think the fight or flight, though, is what I'm really seeing. I'm seeing that subside. Yes, he still has it because, again, this is not a magic fix. But it has gotten tremendously better. And then for Declan, the last thing I want to say for him is he had chronic ear challenges. And so he's had 2 rounds of tubes. By the time I got to you guys, I was already in talks with his ENT of giving him a 3rd set of tubes, because one has fallen out in one side and the left side is out and the right side's like barely hanging on. And the ENT, who I love, he's a great person. He's a great partner to us and to our family. And this is the world he lives in, is tubes, and thinking that's appropriate, and that's, we've done it. And so, when we started our conversation, that was one of the main drivers, is like, can you help, not fix, can you help his ear challenges without me putting him through a 3rd set of tubes? And it took a while. I mean, we're 3 full months into his care. And I am now seeing that he doesn't have those ear challenges anymore. Like Dex was so bad that I could actually, if I looked in both of his ears, I could see what looked like wax, but really was yucky drainage. Kind of just like pooled there. And so I check his ears every day, like with my flashlight, like I'm in there and I don't see it at all. So, but our conversation, which I loved and I want to share, was me coming to you and being like, listen, I'm concerned because I'm still seeing it. And I'm afraid that this could potentially permanently impact his hearing. And obviously, that's concerning. And your best direction was trust your mom gut. Mom, what you need to do. So trust your gut. We, and we agreed, we're like, all right, let's give it one more scan and see what the scans say. And to me, that was reasonable because he was going to have a scan like that week or whatever it was. So it was like, that's reasonable. And then I'll make my decision after that. And his scan showed tremendous improvement. And it really was like the timing was, that's when I stopped seeing like the gunky buildup in his ears and stuff like that. And so, I do think for Declan at this point in time, I'm comfortable saying we've avoided a 3rd set of tubes, which is huge. But again, not a quick fix. So I don't want parents to be like, oh, I'm going to take my level 3 child with severe autism to a neurologically focused chiropractor, and they're going to be magically like challenges are going to go away. Like that's not the case. Like it's still a long road, but one that I fully believe in, one where I know I've seen changes in Declan and we continue to see changes.
Yeah. And we wish it could be that extreme quick fix, almost like that magic bullet that goes with it. But we know, especially when we laid this good foundation of the nervous system, it allows for the body to stay adaptable to what's going on. Like you said, where it's like Declan still has his occasional struggles where like we saw like the constipation go to, instead of where we had daily pooping, then go to every couple of days, at times 3 days. And it lets us know, like, okay, we need to give extra support to his digestive system in that area and look in that specific spot for his adjustments, because we know that's specifically what his struggles are during that time. And that's what we like to talk about, that continuous care that continues to help him stay adaptable with it. And at times, maybe his digestion was taking more of a load to be able to help to clear up the ear infections and things like that with it.
Right, exactly. Should I share the scans? Like, do we want to jump into that? Because I know we're almost an hour in. Do we want to jump into his scans and just kind of talk about those?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, let's see if I can do this.
You got it.
I'm old. Let's see, hopefully. Okay.
While you do that, I might just share a little background information on our scans.
Perfect.
Oh,
Yeah.
got 'em up. Perfect. So at our office, and any parents out there that want to look up these scans, they are the CLA Insight scans. And they are all sensory-based scans, so there is nothing entering or exiting the body like an X-ray, perfectly safe during pregnancy and for the tiniest of newborns. And it's a series of 3 scans that we run. I know a lot of parents in the autism community are probably like, okay, how are you going to get these scans done on my child? Because I definitely think, maybe Diane, that was a thought that went through your head.
For sure.
We get it done. We are patient. We take our time with them, and we do our best to make sure we can get as much of the information or as many of the scans as possible at that visit. The first scan we do, this kind of like square one in the back, is heart rate variability. And for that one, for kids, we typically use an ear clip. So it clips onto their ear. And what that one is doing is measuring the time in between heartbeats. So you think 60 beats per minute would be 1 beat per second. But in actuality, there's fluctuations in that timing, which tells us how adaptable the nervous system is. This one gives us, and we'll see it on the scan, but it basically gives us a body battery score. So like how much fuel you or your child has in their tank. And it also tells us if they're more so on that sympathetic fight or flight gas pedal side of the nervous system, or if they're more so in that parasympathetic rest and digest brake pedal side of the nervous system. We'll go over what we would like to see as we have the pictures up for the scans, or what would be considered like normal scan. But the other one we do is a rolling thermal. It's the one on the right in this picture. This one just rolls up their back, and it takes temperature differences and compares them from side to side, as well as from bottom to top. And that one's really more so looking at like regional inflammation. So if the HRV is giving us that bird's eye view look at the nervous system, these other two are telling us more so where that stress is located. And the surface EMG scan is really telling us how well brain and body are communicating. This is usually the one I like to see the most for our children that have autism. I think it gives the most information.
Awesome. Okay, next slide. Go to the next one. Okay. Dr. Liv, do you want to talk about this? I mean, I act like I know what I'm looking at, but I still don't.
You do. You definitely know. So for this one, we only put in the view that compares it from side to side. So for Declan, the scan on the left is his first scan. So we've already touched on the fact that Declan struggled with ear infections, right? Pretty bad ear infections.
Yep.
Those 2 big red bars right underneath his brainstem it's like Declan read the textbook for ear infections and these scans. But what this one is really doing is in this view, it's comparing side to side the temperature differences. We don't just look at color, right? But color is a big indicator of where there's like massive stress. So for Declan on this left scan, we see that right up top with those 2 big red bars. I mean, even if you don't have any knowledge of these scans, I know you can look at that one and look at the next one and be like, oh, that's better.
Yes.
Right? Because
yes,
we saw
sure.
it break up. But a big thing that we talk about, again, is not just the color, but also the distribution of that inflammation. So on the first scan on the left, we see he's very right-sided, and then it swings over to the left, right? When we look at his next scan, it is left-sided and then swings to the right. And I know me and Diane had this conversation that the first thing we want to see in these scans is change. We don't necessarily even want it to look better. So for context for people listening, this scan on the left was his first, and the scan on the right was after we did the daily visits. So this isn't Deck's most recent scans. We thought for ease of understanding, this would be the easiest way.
Yep.
But we did see some big change. And then even, I know we talked about digestion. It's hard just because I don't have a pointer, but this, where we see on the bottom right, that big kind of clump of white.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see that break up on the scan on the right, where we see a little, it starts on the right, but then it breaks into the left. That is also a huge indicator. Just seeing that distribution change is very important. Diane, if there's any questions you think people might think, feel free to throw them in.
No, I think this is great. I mean, again, I think for people, because several people have reached out, because I share on my Instagram page about that, you guys and what we're doing with Declan, and they wanted just more information on the scans. And so, what do they do? What do they look like? I mean, and I will say too, I was the parent to think like, okay, this might be difficult getting the scans, but I'm also like that we're going to do it, even if it's difficult. And I think too, as a parent, like, just have that open dialogue with the provider, because I do know Declan best. And so while I want him to be comfortable always, I also understand sometimes we have to do things that make us uncomfortable. And so I was like, just do it. Just get in there and do it. Like, rip the Band-Aid off, because otherwise, like, taking your time in this instance for Declan was just going to prolong the pain. And not that it was painful, but like the mental pain of it, So I think, just again, as a parent, your kiddo best. If slow and steady is the right approach for your kid, vocalize that.
Yes.
For me, I was like, just run that baby up his back and let's knock this out, and let's keep it moving. Because
absolutely. And I feel like that's something that, like, all kind of, you got to gauge out. Like, I always try to ask, like, are you okay with me just getting it? Or like, should we take this slow and longer? Because 100% agree. And parents, that, like, have an open, honest communication with your doc always. Like, whether that be you kind of know that your child doesn't like a certain adjustment, tell them they should be able to adapt. Of course, there is going to be a time when the doc is going to say, or the doc might come back and say, this is really what they need. So I do encourage you to be open with that as well. And it's always about finding a balance, because I can assure you that your doctor's main goal is to make sure your child is as comfortable as possible, but also that your child is going to, progress and thrive, better depending on certain adjustments and whatnot. So have that open and honest communication, and then always try to find a way to meet in the middle.
That's right.
Yeah. And then especially even just to add in a little bit as well, what we're seeing with that C1, C2 pattern, and especially with it going off one side and then off hard the other way, that's what I like to call counter torque. Pretty much think about it like as if you had both your kids pulling you in opposite directions. It can be very confusing. Imagine that, especially right there at the brainstem, creating that huge congestion, but especially neurological dysregulation that's happening right there. That's very common, especially for kids that are struggling being in fight or flight, just in general, because of the fact it can be very neurologically confusing on the body. That's how we can see discoordination at times, obviously more ADHD, sleep difficulties, and just really the effect that it has specifically on this nerve called the vagus nerve that starts right at the top of the brainstem and travels all the way down. That's primarily known as that brain-gut connection in the body. But especially then, like Dr. Liv was talking about, is then we look in at that clumping as it starts at that T11 area. That's why specifically we saw that clumping happening there, because the vagus nerve is being affected up there, causing then those digestive issues that was happening before. And then as we look over then at his next scans from the daily, the fact that we saw a removal of that counter torque was a massive win, letting us know we got his body out of that fight or flight and calmed down that regulation going on. And like we talked about earlier, it's not that quick fix. It's not that one of where it's like, okay, on that, after his daily visits, all of a sudden we saw completely clear scans, everything looking absolutely fantastic. We're still seeing a little bit of inflammation that's happening up there at C1 because the body's now focusing on it, trying to give it more awareness of what's going on. But especially we saw that at L2, seeing that come online more, letting the body know it's starting to work on digestion, because that short-term inflammation isn't a bad thing. It's when it's that long, large amounts of inflammation that happen with there. But especially that's why what we love, especially what we did with Dr. Tony, it helped to see us from this 3D lens, as opposed to sometimes whenever people use the insight scans, they look at simply as just red is bad, white is good, green and blue are okay. We're looking at it from a different perspective and how everything is interconnected with it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dr. Devin. That was
Yeah.
great.
And just a quick question, all PX docs use these same scans, or they could use different tools?
For the most part, that's all using these scans. You might find a couple offices here and there. So on the directory, they did add a label that specifically says insight scans used. And I would highly recommend finding a doc who uses them.
Okay.
I would say 95% of offices that are PX docs use them, but there are a few doctors probably on there who are earlier on in their journey, and they're ordering them right now as we speak.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
Yep. So the next view we have here is surface EMG. So like Dr. Liv said, this is a big one, especially for our sensory processing disorder community, that we love to get, because it lets us know how is the body holding energy. And especially I love to look at this one because it's how people best understand chiropractic in general, that neck, back pain, maybe just energy in general, because we can especially see that on there whenever the nervous system is in a stress state. We see that specifically go through in our neuromuscular system, because it's going by and creating that protection with it, almost that tortoise shell that's going on below with it. And we can see before, when Deck first came in, his body more in that fight or flight state, about how we saw a great deal of red noise that was going on there, the body more in that defense state with it. And especially as we started to look, especially at that T1, T2 area, but especially right down here in those adrenals area. So T8 through T12 is where we see more of his adrenal spot with it. And we can see, especially right there at T8, there was a great deal of stress that was being placed on his adrenals. So especially that vagus nerve, how it also controls digestion. It also plays a big role in connecting to your adrenal glands, because of the fact it is that on-off going from fight or flight into rest and digest. So especially what we saw there, we saw his body go by and decrease a great deal of energy. As you can see, a lot less red that's going on in his next scan. But like we said, at times, things almost look a little bit more messy before they get better. After his daily adjustments, we saw a little bit of yellow even popping up in there, that T8, T10 spot, because of the fact his adrenals finally got a chance to calm down, and they almost just went by into exhaustion, got a chance to slow down, get everything set, and be able to still go by and maybe increase a little bit of attention of what's going on with digestion down below at L3, L5, because his body needs some extra support there to be able to have his neuromuscular system have greater support of what's going on down there, so it can incorporate more healing going on and take that pressure off his adrenals. Now, when we look at Deck's current scans, that yellow is completely gone because of the fact his adrenals are a lot more regulated, but just helping to explain what Dr. Liv said earlier at times of where it can look a little bit more messy before it gets better.
Yeah. And so just to put some numbers behind this. So the scan on the left, if I am remembering correctly, it was roughly around, we would say 330 points and that's they get by adding the numbers from all these bars together. So 330 points of like energy in the body. It's too much. It's too much energy. Think of it like noise to your brain and nervous system. So our brain and body work together. Our brain sends signals to the body, which then sends signals back up to the brain. When you get really noisy, loud information from the body going into the brain, you get really noisy, loud information from the brain going back out to the rest of the body. A big thing when we have that much energy in the neurospinal system is it shows up a lot, like with a lot of kids that have sensory challenges. This is usually what we see: ADHD, big emotions. We usually see just too much energy, because I always joke with parents that it's like trying to have a serious conversation with somebody at a Metallica concert, right? Like it's impossible. And that's why for sometimes kids, like when they're in fight or flight, or, you bring your child somewhere and it's loud and they have a hard time with loud noises, it's just because they're constantly being inundated with noise from their body to their brain. and their body just isn't using that energy effectively, which also means that your body has less energy for other things like digestion, the immune system, for women, like our hormonal system. So what we saw in his next scan after daily was we were in a big period of like, okay, let's take some of this load off of Dec's nervous system, because to him, it probably feels like he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, right? So we really went into a period of let's calm everything down. So, I mean, we see this T8 went from being on this T8 was 100 and something points of energy in and of itself. And then we see it come over here and now it's like 18. So we really calmed that down. And again, if I'm remembering correctly, this one was a 193. And I do trust those numbers because I looked at them just last night. So I'm like 99% sure, it may be off by 1 or 2. But we were in a big phase of calm down. Once we got his nervous system to calm down, this was kind of when we were like, we did 1 more week of daily at this point. But after that, we were like, okay, he's in a good spot. Let's take the training wheels off and we're going to go to 4 days and we'll gradually decrease. But yeah, this scan has a lot of complexities. There's a lot of different views that go with it. This is kind of just like a little sample of it.
Remind me, is this the rolling one or is this the one that you push on each vertebra?
That we push on each segment.
Okay, perfect. And then this is the last one.
Yeah. So heart rate variability is, like Dr. Liv said earlier, looking at your total body battery and how well balanced you are from that sympathetic fight or flight side or that parasympathetic rest and digest side. Especially the way that we look at it, first and foremost, we look at autonomic activity. That's your body battery. And to explain it best, the same way that we charge our phones at night, we want it to start off at 100% whenever we start off the day. We want it to be able to have our body battery sing at that same level. The problem is whenever we're going by using a lot of energy throughout the day, dealing with a lot of stressors, it lowers our body battery. So for Dec, initially, he was starting off at about 70%, and we can see how he was more on that sympathetic fight or flight side, which was allowing his body not to efficiently use energy the best way it could. Because the best way your body is using energy is when it's well balanced between sympathetic and parasympathetics, the same way that you're using the gas pedal and the brake pedal on your car. If you're going by and just revving the engine, you're going to go by and burn through a bunch of gas. But then same thing, if you go by and just slam it on the brake pedal, you're not going by and getting where you need to be. So we can especially see then after daily, what we were able to do is we were able to increase his autonomic activity, that body battery, from 69 into 73. And that may not look like a massive jump with it, but that's more overall body battery, more adaptability that his body had to stay more resilient to the stressors that were happening in his life. And especially at first, what we wanted to do is just get him out of fight or flight, get the body more in that balanced state with it. And that allowed us to be able to jump over from that sympathetic side into parasympathetics instead. And now, especially what we've seen more of is Dec being able to continue to climb up into that green zone with it, being able to allow his body to continue to stay more adaptable, continue to stay more resilient. But it's that process of being able to allow more support through it.
Yeah, and this scan, so the one on the right for Dec, this one we actually got after we had finished daily. So this one was a little bit later than the previous ones. I will say usually the scan that is the most challenging to get with kids that have sensory challenges is this heart rate variability one, because it is an ear clip and it does sit on there for 3 minutes. So usually this is the one that it's like, okay, we'll give you some space and we'll run this one later. So we actually ran this one at a completely different day and we got a great capture by doing that. So, I mean, we are always open to do that. Like, especially once you're in care, if we get through the first 2 and it's like, okay, next time you come in, we'll do the ear clip. That way they're have a fresh slate, a little bit more fuel in their tank. But the fact that we saw Declan not only rise on the body battery, but shift over to that brake pedal side of the nervous system is a huge win in and of itself, because actually, like, after doing adjustments, it told us that his body and nervous system loved the adjustments. The fact that we saw him rise at all, let alone almost 4 points. And we finally got him to take his foot off the gas pedal. And that's not to say that we haven't gone back and forth a little bit between fight or flight, rest and digest, and finding that. And his nervous system is still finding that balance. But once it does, I know we'll continue to see him go higher and higher up on that y-axis or that body battery.
Yeah, and I would say just as a parent, like that's why the scans are so important, because it gives you the data. You can look at it. It makes sense if you have the right providers explaining it to you, so that it's understandable. And to Dr. Liv's point is we have seen throughout his scans just change. Sometimes, as Dr. Liv said, sometimes change doesn't look like good change, but any change at this point is good change. We love change. And I think even his last heart rate variability, I think he was down like in Z4. Was he like lower into that? Or maybe it was the Z3 quadrant. I can't remember. But, and I remember at first I was a little like, why, sad. And like, it kind of like made me tear up a little bit. And the way you explained it just made sense. Is like, sometimes the body's focused on other areas and working so hard. And I know, knowing Declan, I know his little body is working so hard. And he's working so hard to get through this. And so again, it didn't discourage me. In the moment when I saw it, I was disappointed, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. So, like we kept it moving. Like Dr. Liv talked me off the ledge. We got through it and it made sense. And so I would just say to other parents, like, it's not always right, this smooth progression. It might look like this in the beginning, and even we're 3 full months in, and it still looks a little bit like that, but that's okay because we're seeing progress. And as my sister said, teaspoons, not tablespoons, right? So like we are, any little morsel of change, positive change that we get, even if it's him sitting down and just looking at the television, like sitting still, like that's progress for Declan, because he was like a ping pong ball. Like there was no peace. His body was never at peace. As much as we tried, like he had to be really sick, he had to be struggling in order for him to like lay on the couch. And so, we're seeing that more engagement with myself, my husband, his brothers. All of those things are just continuing to progress. And so, it truly might not look like there's progress on the scans at times, but just know it won't stay that way.
Yeah. And the same thing with my exercise analogy before. When we're making change, the nervous system is working a lot harder than it has before, right? I mean, his nervous system was working a lot harder than it needed to, but it was doing that for such a long period of time that it was used to it, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So now that we're going and making changes, the nervous system isn't used to it. It's a little bit uncomfortable. It's not uncommon to see that HRV drop. And again, that exercise, you start a new exercise routine, the first like month, you're like exhausted, right? Your body everything hurts. And not that the body hurts with chiropractic care, but kind of that similar thing where it's like, okay, I'm more tired now because I'm working harder, but it all ultimately ends up where we see it climb back up because it gets used to, again, working in a better environment. And that's why we'll see it not only get higher, but improve drastically from where it started at one point, just because the body's like, okay, this is so much easier. I was working so hard before when I didn't need to be.
That's right. So stay the course is the moral of the story. Stay the course.
And then this just kind of goes into summarize, like we talked about, whenever other parents bring their kids in the office, how we talk about how the nervous system is so foundationally important with it, because of the fact if we're focusing just on those brain-based activities of emotional regulation, speech, cognition, you're going to miss out on the benefits of everything else that needs to happen before that to really see those bigger changes that go on with it. Obviously, the autonomic nervous system is that main foundation that goes with it, but especially how that then helps to build better motor tone coordination that then eventually then supports the gut and immune system. And like Dr. Liv said, it's most of the time we see this progression through, but at times the body goes by and says what it feels like its best needs to do in order to heal itself first and foremost. That's what it goes for before then maybe it goes into gut and immune. Like for instance with Deck, how he was able to get a lot more regulated, being able to have those better changes before we saw that initial change in gut.
Right. Exactly. And I think too, it's important not to compare your kiddo to another kiddo who's going through the same program, and really just being open to it. You know, I've said many times, like when I started this journey with Declan, words were my marker of success for him. And that is no longer the case. You know, I say they will, that words, when, if and when they come, will be the cherry on top, but they're no longer the indicator of his success. The success is that he's regulated, he feels safe, he's happy. Though it's not words. And so I think just knowing that, you know, even just seeing him lay on the couch, like I said, that's a win for Declan. It might not be a win for Joey, but it's a win for Declan. And that's where I stay focused. And so I would say just stay focused on your own child and making sure that you are really having that open dialogue with your partners.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say 100% agree. Like you can't compare one journey to another, because you will, like, you're going to see kids in the office at all different points in their journey too, right? Like there, you don't know who's on visit 60 out of 60, who's on wellness, who just started a week ago. You won't know. And then you'll hear us talking about like different wins with different parents and everything. And the main thing is just your child's on their own journey. And your wins aren't somebody else's wins and vice versa. Right. And just know that your doc and you are a team and you guys are doing everything together to get you to achieve your goals and for your child. And all me and Devin want at the end of the day is to see your child be happy, healthy, and thrive. And I mean, when Declan runs in every day, or when he comes in for his appointments with a big smile on his face and he runs in and grabs my hand and brings me to the table, like nothing melts my heart more than that. And we love him and your family so much, and we're lucky to be able to care for you guys.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. No, this is amazing. And we always joke, like, because Declan really does do that. Like he runs in and he will grab your hand or Dr. Devin's and usually pull you right over the table. Like, let's do this. Like, get your hands on me. You know, sometimes he's even put your hands on his neck. Like, let's go. Like, stop chatting. You know, with my mom.
I'm still holding out hope. Declan's going to be a fantastic chiropractor one day.
I know, you know, I mean, listen, there's no limits on that boy, even though he's currently non-speaking. I mean, we know cognitively he is beyond. So yeah, I agree. I mean, we joke that he can read the scans better than all of us, right? Like, you know,
for real.
He knows what's going to be on the scans before they even come out. So yeah, I think too, like, I think his response just shows me that he wants this, that he even though, yes, I already know it because the scans tell me that, like that his body's reacting, but I feel like his just response shows me this. And again, it goes back to fight or flight. Like when we've come into your office, even from the beginning, I don't think he was really ever in fight or flight there. You know, like he felt safe, he felt comfortable. He may have been a little nervous about what you were going to do. And when you bring that little tool over, he's always like giving you side eye, like, I don't think so. But even though he knows it doesn't hurt. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just such a warm, wonderful, welcoming place that, you know, when we started this journey, I didn't feel like we had a team for Declan. I felt like the team was Tim and I, and then our family, of course. But, you know, I feel like now, like, we really do have an amazing team for Declan that is so dedicated to Declan and to what you guys are so dedicated to what you do, that I'm so grateful to both of you. And so that's part of this too, is like, I just want other parents, this is the right thing for Declan. This is the right path for Declan. It may or may not be the right path for others and their children. I mean, that's for them to vet and to listen to their mom gut. But I think from parents just starting out, I wish I knew 3 years ago what I know now, because neurologically focused chiropractic care and a PX doc certified doc would have been probably my first stop. not probably, would have been that and spelling. So, I would just say that's my experience. I share just to hopefully help others, but that's what I would do. And I would just say, just listen to your mom gut. You, even when you don't think you know what you're doing, you do. And you know 100% what is right for your child. And even if you think you took a misstep, it's a learning opportunity and you just pivot. But I'm so grateful to both of you for being here today. This was so fun. I love you guys.
Oh, we love you right back.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate
Of course.
it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
That being said, if anyone, of course, is local to Charleston and you just want to chit chat with one of us or both of us and just learn a little bit more, we would love to be a resource for all you rockstar parents out there. For anyone who isn't local that is looking for something like this, the website is pxdocs.com. Also, if you're unsure about what you're looking for on there, please never hesitate to reach out to us. We got into this work because we are so passionate about what we do and we love it. So I would love to help you find a PX doc, explain things to you, whether you're local or not.
Yeah. And we even have the capabilities as well at our office, like same thing they do at PwC, to do intensives with your child, to be able to help to create that neurological momentum with them. And then after that, get you set up with another doc, at least as close as we can to you as well. Just always want to say that we have the opportunity to do that as well.
Yes.
Yeah, amazing. And I'm not like, this is I say low budget, but it's no budget, right? Like this is no budget podcast. So, but my email is tied on the YouTube channel. So you can always reach out to me and I can always pass along contact information too. If you happen to follow on Instagram, I always post when I publish a new podcast episode. So I will make sure that I tag you guys in there. Or if you just go to my Instagram, you'll see these two friends all over it because I love them so much. And they're become a huge part of our life, which is just such a gift. And so, I think when we started this calendar year, as I say, one of our family's mantras is pivot, right? I found you guys at the end of the year. So I guess, right. But we started treatment after the first. And I mean, it's really been one of the things in Declan's entire journey that I am most grateful for. Genuinely and truthfully, that I mean that, because I see the change. Not only do I see the change, but I feel it in him. And like we haven't seen with other things. And so again, we're just really laying that super, super strong foundation for him to then add back in other things that we've done, add new things. I mean, there's no stopping him for sure, but you guys are a huge piece of that. And I just appreciate both of you so much.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
for
we
having
appreciate
us.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys and your family. When seriously, when Deck comes in and his older brother, we love seeing you guys. It makes our whole day.
And then when I bring Cooper in and he destroys your toy area and then he takes your snacks on the way out. I mean, it's all just great stuff.
Oh, absolutely. That's what they're there for.
And I'm like, oh my God, all the boils out of the office.
Yeah, usually a boil crew. Come on.
Let's go. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening to this episode. And I appreciate everyone's time. And Dr. Liv and Dr. Deb, and you both especially, I appreciate you guys so much. And thanks again to everyone for listening.
Of course. Thank you guys.